Alright, this is going to be the ultimate guide to creating catchy trap beats inside of FL Studio. We are going to make the whole beat from scratch and I'm going to share all the sauce with you guys. As most of you already know, I really value all of your time. So let's not waste any of it. Let's just jump straight in. Alright, so we are now here in FL Studio 21. As you guys can see, the first thing we want to do is just pick a BPM. Now, usually when you are going for some sort of trap beats, I highly recommend going for something in between 120 and 160. So in this case, let's just bump it up a little bit. So I'm going to go for 155. Then the next thing we want to do is obviously pick an instrument. In this case, I really feel like going for some sort of piano. So I'm just going to open up Omnisphere over here. We're going to go over to the keyboards and we're just going to scroll down a little bit. And I'm actually going to go for this LA Custom C7 softest preset right there. And then once we have opened up the piano roll right here, all we want to do now is just create a catchy trap pattern. So in my opinion, one of the best ways to actually do this is just by using the 1/4 chord progression. If you guys don't know what the 1/4 chord progression is, it actually just means that you are using the first note inside of your scale and the fourth note over here. If you actually don't know how to pick a scale in FL Studio, all you have to do is just go over to this arrow over here and go to view. Then you want to go down to scale highlighting over here. And then you can literally just pick a random root note right here. And also you want to pick your scale on the right side. So in this case, let's just go for D and then we can go for D minor over here. Now you will see all of these gray and highlighted notes inside of our piano roll. It's basically all the notes in the D minor scale. So you want to make sure that you're only using the highlighted notes over here. Now with all of that being said, since we are working in the D minor scale, let's just start off with a D note over here. Now let us just build a little bit off of this. So we want to make a D minor chord. To do this, you just want to skip the first highlighted note inside of the scale and then put one on the second one over here. Then you just want to do the same exact thing again. So we are just going to skip this G over here and put one down on the A. Then to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm actually going to highlight this middle note over here and we just want to invert it. This means that we are actually just going to pitch it up by 1 octave but keeping it at the same note. So this right here is going to be our first chord. Now to get that 1/4 chord progression I talked about earlier, all you want to do is just copy the same exact chord over, but this time we actually just want to pitch it down by 5 semitones. So this is going to be the main part of our pattern. Super fire chord progression right there. Now obviously this is a little bit simple, so we definitely want to make this more catchy by adding some more elements. So to make this a little bit more catchy, I'm just going to make somewhat of a repetitive pattern using some of the notes inside of our scale. And I'm really going to try to work in these half steps right here. So that means these notes that are right next to each other inside of our scale. Okay, so we kind of just have this as a super repetitive pattern. Just copied it over for the second part as well. Now this might look a little bit simple, but we are still going to add a few more elements to the pattern. And by the way, you don't have to worry about these notes that are actually not inside of the scale. As long as you're just copying the same exact pattern over and pitching it down by 5 semitones, it's going to sound good no matter what. Now the next thing we want to add is just some top notes over here in the higher octaves. This is going to give us some more of those lighter frequencies on top, and it's overall just going to make our pattern sound a little bit better. So we have this top line to go with it right now. Now the last thing we are going to do to the sample is actually just go over down here to the root notes yet again. And all you want to do is just highlight every single one of the root notes. Then all I'm going to do is just hold shift on my keyboard and press the notes 1 time. That is just going to copy the same exact notes that we are highlighting. And then you can just do Control and down to add some of those bass notes down there. Lastly, since we are having a lot of notes that are actually overlapping on each other, we're just going to hit Control A and then Alt and S to strum the notes so they don't hit on the same exact time. Just going to make our sample a little bit more realistic overall. Yeah, so it really has that catchy type of trap vibe to it. Now that we have the main pattern down, we also want to add some cool effects to really get that trap vibe out of our sample. So when it comes to these trappy type of effects, I really like going for effects that kind of change up the whole sound a little bit. So one example is obviously Effect Rack. It really modulates and tweaks the whole sound of your sample. So I'm first just going to drag in a crystallizer and play a little bit around with the wet knob over here. You can hear that little bit of a reverse in the background. Let's also go for a RC20. After that, I'm just gonna add this reverse pattern in Shaper Box 2, putting the mix to about 25%. Again, it kind of switches up the sound a little bit. Some fresh air just to give it some more color. A kickstart 2 at about 40% to give us that pulsing trap type of feel. And then we are obviously just finishing off the effects with the EQ to cut out some of the low end. Now, I feel like it's sounding a little bit too dark. So what I'm actually gonna do is just pitch down the sample maybe 4 semitones, and then I'm gonna pitch the whole thing up by 1 octave. Yeah, that's more like it right there. It's a little bit of a cooler sound to it for sure. The next step to create a good and catchy sounding trap melody is to add some sort of layer to our main pattern. So again, I'm just going to open up Omnisphere and I'm using this backwards glockenspiel preset over here. Then all you want to do is just copy the same exact pattern from our first pattern and just paste it over to this second sound over here. Then for this one, I'm actually going to delete the top notes we have over here since I don't want us to have too much going on. But this time I'm actually going to pitch the whole thing down by 1 octave as well. Now for that second sound, we really want it to be a little bit more ambient than the piano. So I'm just going to add a little bit of reverb using this Roam over here. And then also to switch the sound up a little bit, I'm just going to add this halftime at about standard settings. But let us just try to mix a little bit around with the different knobs. Yeah, this is sounding fire for sure. Sounds like a cool little bit of layer in the background. Now, before we add a proper counter melody to really finish out the sample, I feel like showing you guys some crazy sauce when it comes to these trap melodies. And that is to make sure to add a cool and catchy bass pattern and also adding some accents and textures in the background. So I'm quickly just going to open up my Imperial one-shot kit, and then I just dragged in this monster texture over here. And then I'm also going to add this sub bass over here as well. Yeah, so you can really hear just by adding those two little elements right there, it really gives us so much to the sample. Alright, now when it comes to adding that proper counter melody to the sample, I personally really like to use different phrases. This is just because I really feel like it gives us that authentic feel to the trap sample, and it is also very, very easy to find different and catchy sounding phrases to use. So personally, I'm just going to use this strip bank over here in Arcade, and I did find this little phrase over here. Now what I'm going to do with this one is just add a free plugin called Pancake 2. This is very simple. It's just going to pan from left to right. And then I'm also just going to add this EQ to cut out a little bit of those high frequencies and all of the lows as well. But one very, very cool and unique thing you guys can do, it is actually to open up Roam. But instead of using this standard Roam preset over here, we are actually going to go into the presets, go to Creative over here. Once you have opened up this, you just want to go all the way down until you have this backward preset. You definitely want to mess a little bit around with the knobs. So all I'm going to do is just turn the feedback down a little bit, as well as the main mix over here. Yeah, that's super catchy for sure. That's fire right there. Now the last thing we're going to do to the sample is just open up a sound shifter, and we're going to try to pitch it down by 4 semitones just to see how it sounds. Yeah, that's hard right there. Now that we have the sample finished, let's quickly add some drums. As for all the drum sounds I'm using, they are of course coming from my Euphoria bundle kit. So if you guys like the drum sounds you hear, you can obviously check them out. They are on my website, it is BBMarko.com, or you guys can just click the first link down below. So I'm actually going to start off by layering both the clap and the rim. Try to add one more here as well. Now for these trap beats, you definitely want to choose a hi-hat that is a little bit hard hitting. And then let's just go in with that standard 2-step to start off with. If you also want to really spice up your hi-hat rolls, I highly recommend you guys to go over to the magnet tool and go to either 6th beat or 3rd beat, just to kind of differentiate in between the bounce. Now to really get that trap bounce, we definitely want to add some more snares and some open hats inside of our pattern. So we're going to start off with this open hat on the first hit, but then we also want to add some sort of open hats where we feel like the 808 and the kick is going to go. So let us say we want to have some sort of kick pattern like this. Then what you want to make sure you do is just layer your open hat where one of the kicks would hit. So in this case, I'm just going to layer the open hat with this kick right here. Yeah, that's hard. Try to do a double as well. velocity of these two though. Yeah, that's hard. I think it is time that we actually layer that kick with the 808. Alright, so for the 808 pattern, literally all we want to do is just copy the same exact kick pattern over here. So just hit Ctrl C, then we're going to go down to the 808 and just hit Ctrl V to copy that over. Then we obviously want to open it up and extend each note like this. And then we also want to highlight everything and make sure that we actually put it on the root note of our piano pattern. Now, if you guys remember, we actually did pitch down the whole sample by 4 semitones. So we also want to make sure that we do this with the root note. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to make sure everything is in key. That's crazy. And the last thing we are actually going to do with the drums is just go back to the kick pattern over here. And I'm actually going to adjust some of the kick hits a little bit before the 808 actually hits. So as you guys can see, I just moved this a little bit before the 808 right here. And we can probably do the same exact thing on the second part as well. Now let me just quickly arrange the whole thing and I'll show you guys the final beat. Alright, so here we have the final beat. As you guys can see, we pretty much have all the elements in the intro.
Shut up, Marko. Marko?
Added some cool effects before the hook. Yeah, that's hard. We have the counter melody come in. Yeah, the drums go crazy as well. Slow it a little bit down for the verse right here. Busy part of the verse yet again. Pretty much the same as the hook. We go back to the intro. Just use this as somewhat of a bridge. Just goes right back into the hook again.